Hey guys, it's Tim here from Mad Gear Arcade, back with another music catalog countdown, and today we are covering all 13 studio albums of The Cure. Brief bio for those who need it. The Cure is a goth rock new wave band formed in 1978 in Crowley, West Sussex, England, with frontman and principal songwriter Robert Smith being the only original and consistent member throughout the years. Their sound has gone through different phases, from post-punk to goth to alternative punk rock and everything in between. They've sold over 30 million albums worldwide, and in 2009 received one of the highest honors in music when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. For this list, as usual, we're only including the full-length albums, so records like Boys Don't Cry, Japanese Whispers, and Mixed Up are unfortunately excluded. But with that being said, let's get to the countdown. Starting off our countdown, oddly enough, at the bottom is The Top. Released in 1984, this is basically a collection of mostly forgettable songs. The band started to experiment with more pop elements in the style of Duran Duran on this record, and it proved to be a big miss. Aside from Shake Dog Shake, Bird Mad Girl, and Gimme It, there's really not much here, other than the very filler track Dressing Up, as well as the single The Caterpillar, which I'm personally not a fan of. The Top gets a 2 out of 5. At number 12, we have Wild Mood Swings. Released in 1996, this record definitely did not cause any mood swings other than disappointment. The Cure was definitely a totally different band in the 90s, losing their darker goth sound for a much brighter and happier aesthetic, which was starting to turn off a lot of the fans. The record starts off strong with opener Want, but quickly goes downhill for the most part. As much as I love the single Mint Car, it's basically described by another YouTuber as a poor man's version of Friday I'm in Love, which is a song we'll talk about much later on. And other than Numb, this is a pretty forgettable album. Wild Mood Swings gets a 2 out of 5. At number 11, we have the self-titled album. Released in 2004, I really don't care for this album other than the songs Before 3, Anniversary, Us or Them, and Taking Off. This record was actually produced by Ross Robinson, who's best known for working with artists such as Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot. So a lot of the songs are on the more heavier side, at least in terms of the Cure's sound. Still, it doesn't help the album much, as it still just gets a 2 out of 5. At number 10, we have Three Imaginary Boys. The Cure's debut album, released in 1979. Rob and the boys have definitely come a long way since this one. They've yet to find their identity during their early post-punk years, as their sound is fairly generic and more in the style of a band like The Clash. 10:15 Saturday Night just really isn't my cup of tea, but there is a couple good songs on here, like Grinding Halt, Another Day, Object, Fire in Cairo, and of course the title track. Not exactly the best representation of The Cure, which gives it a 2 out of 5. At number 9, we have The Head on the Door. Released in 1985, this is one of The Cure's more memorable albums that I personally just don't care for as much as most, and I know I'm going to upset a lot of you by putting this one so low. I think the album's alright. It gave us hits like In Between Days, Close to Me, and A Night Like This, and a deep cut like Push is great, as well as the closer Sinking. The Head on the Door gets a 3 out of 5. At number 8, we have Faith. The Cure's third studio album and the last chapter in their post-punk trilogy. While the band was beginning to find their identity on their previous album, it wasn't until this record that The Cure's darker side really starts to manifest. Opener The Holy Hour sets the mood, while the single Primary and Other Voices are solid companions. Doubt is one of my favorite Cure songs, and the album finishes strong with the closing title track. Faith gets a 3 out of 5. At number 7, appropriately enough, is 17 Seconds. The Cure's sophomore album, released in 1980 and the second part of the post-punk trilogy. This was, in my opinion, The Cure's best album of their early years. I like almost all the songs on here, with the exception of the opener Reflection and Secrets. This record gave us hits like Play for Today and A Forest. However, the album loses major points for having a bit too much filler, especially in the middle with tracks like 3 and The Final Sound, which sadly hurts this album, giving it a 3 out of 5. At number 6, we have Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Now we get into the good stuff. Released in 1987, this is one of The Cure's most successful and iconic albums, giving us one of their biggest hits in Just Like Heaven, as well as Why Can't I Be You. The Kiss is probably the best opener on a Cure record, and while it loses a bit of momentum with songs like Catch, what follows is a series of bangers like Torture, If Only Tonight We Could Sleep, and How Beautiful You Are. This is another album that suffers from having too much filler, with a total of 18 tracks. However, songs like Icing Sugar, 1,000 Hours, Shiver and Shake are all great deep cuts, while Fight is a superb closer. Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me gets a 4 out of 5. At number 5, we have Wish. Released in 1992, is to this day The Cure's most successful album to date, debuting at number 2 on the Billboard charts and going platinum in its first 2 months. It's also the most polarizing, with a shift towards more happier songs like Doing the Unstuck, and a less goth sound for a more alternative pop rock feel. This is the record that gave us Friday I'm in Love and helped the band rise to mainstream status. I like almost every song on here, but the album loses points for sounding a bit too commercialized and beginning a kind of awkward phase for the band, which gives it a 4 out of 5. At number 4, appropriately enough, we have 413 Dream, Cure's most recent album released in 2008. I know this one is a huge shocker and not very well received by most fans and critics, but you know what? I don't care. I love this album. It combines elements of Wish as well as elements from another album we'll talk about later. The album comes in hot with the first 3 tracks, Underneath the Stars, The Only One, and The Reasons Why, before slightly losing momentum with the very filler Freak Show, but quickly gets back on track with the very infectious Siren song, and deep cuts like The Hungry Ghost, The Perfect Boy, and Sleep When I'm Dead make for a superb album. 413 Dream gets a 4 out of 5. At number 3, we have Bloodflowers, The Cure's 11th studio album released in 2000. Yeah, that's right, another shocker, as a lot of fans and critics wrote this album off as a stinker. But you know what? I love this album, and it just so happens to be Robert Smith's favorite album that he wrote. It really brought The Cure back to its gothy dark roots that they strayed from during the 90s, and with the exception of maybe Watch Me Fall, which I think we can all agree runs way too long at 11 minutes, I like every track on here. Where the Birds Always Sing is one of my favorite Cure songs ever, along with The Last Day of Summer and There Is No If. Bloodflowers is an underrated gem that gets a 4 out of 5. At number 2, we have Pornography, The Cure's 4th studio album released in 1982. Now we enter the S-tier albums and one of their 2 masterpieces. Oh, and by the way, before any casual viewers get nervous, this record has nothing to do with X-rated media or even lustful pleasures of the flesh for that matter. The title is strictly a metaphor or a notion, something that shocks the senses and a distraction from the violent and vulgar world as described by Fat Bob himself. The album really showcases depression in its darkest form with songs like the opener 100 Years, The Figurehead, and Cold, while A Short-Term Effect is probably one of my favorite Cure songs. The single The Hanging Garden is a great representation of the record and really stands out with its primal drum beats and galloping bass line, while the title track is probably my favorite closer on a Cure album. Pornography gets a 5 out of 5. And finally at number 1 we have Disintegration, The Cure's best-selling record to date, certified double platinum and the greatest album ever, at least according to Kyle Perflowski of South Park. The second of The Cure's masterpieces, and if you're only going to listen to one record by them, it should be this one. This is arguably the best representation of the band and jam-packed with hits and fan favorites like Pictures of You, Lullaby, Fascination Street, and of course the very iconic Love Song. There's not a single dull moment on this album. You have the very atmospheric tracks like Plain Song and Close Down, and deep cuts like Prayers for Rain and The Same Deep Water as You are instant classics. Disintegration, The Cure's finest effort to this day, gets a 5 out of 5. Well guys, that's every Cure album so far to date. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Later.